because I can't do live on socials right now. Um, I think I've just got the wrong Facebook app. I don't like the big app. I use the light app on my phone. But I was writing on Facebook. Since I'm still banned on X, I've appealed the decision on X instead of just waiting out a ban. I want them to actually admit that they're full of crap. But what I've been talking about is a connection between parasites and drugs. And you wouldn't think at the outset that there'd be that much in common, really. I mean, parasites are a life form, drugs are plants, or maybe we could define drugs as chemicals that are present in plants. But here's the thing, not all parasites are the same, and not all drugs are the same. So, that's an obvious statement, but when you separate them categorically, you can see that some parasites can be used beneficially, like leeches can clean dirty blood. And most parasites are more like ticks. They'll actually poison your blood. And then you have drugs, some of which are medicines. They can go in and, say, kill cancer cells or eliminate other sicknesses like viruses. And then you have drugs which will fucking kill you, like heroin and cocaine. And these are the addictive ones. I mean, even nicotine's deadly. I watched a YouTube the other day of a guy who murdered his ex-girlfriend, and he said that he was going to kill himself with a lethal dose of nicotine that he had in a syringe. But, he never went through with it. He did go through with murdering his ex-girlfriend. Anyway, the whole point is that the more addictive a drug is, the more pernicious it becomes. And this is very, very much like parasites, because the deeper a parasite gets in, the harder it is to get out. And we've all seen those gross out videos of, well, there's so much going on in the world of parasites, isn't there? There's the cordyceps, which recoats the entire body of another animal, takes over it like a zombie after killing it, and pilots the brain around with little remnants of electricity. And then you got worms and flukes, which can end up really long and fill up the whole body of like a grasshopper, like an intestine wrapping around itself. Getting pretty gross here already. But I'm trying to outline a comparison for you so that you see that there's a psychological nature to spirituality. And this is where a lot of people miss the point of defining what spirituality is. So people look at spirituality generally as a form of balanced morality. So what that balance is might be different for different people. We could refer to the old D&D chart with the chaotic evil down to lawful good. But it's not really that complicated, even though that's not really complicated what I just went through. But yeah, morality is a psychological thing as much as a emotional thing, and the import that we put into objectivity is often underscored by the way that we seek that objectivity. So I'm trying to connect the psychology of how a parasite operates with the psychology of how a drug operates you like a parasite. And it's really important for you to understand that, because if you look at the connection between parasitoid animals, which aren't really true parasites, they're parasitoid. So a wasp is parasitoid. It uses other animals in part of its life cycle, but doesn't have to live in them. Only, here's the funny thing, male parasitoid wasps, the fig trees, they do spend their entire lives inside the fig. They never leave. The female wasp gets to leave from inside the fig where they're all born, and her only job in nature is to go and find an unfertilized fig and go and start the cycle again in there. Like, they're all just constantly inbreeding, going from fertilized fig tree to unfertilized fig tree. It's wild. So the evolutionists have a hard time with this, because they're like, did the wasp evolve the fig tree, or did the fig tree evolve the wasp? and this is what I'm trying to say, it's a connected psychology between plants and animals. There's no separation because there's like this level of awareness, this is what I'm getting to, that divides everybody, not quite evenly, but in some kind of weird, action chart of highs and lows. You have people quite divided on how to pass what they see as the truth with what I guess other people can rationalize but then have fired back at them, but where's your evidence? And there's a big problem is that psychology is its own evidence, and this is one of the big problems with the lack of a marriage between psychiatry and psychology. They're not married for a reason. And one says it has physical evidence, although it doesn't. And the other says it don't need physical evidence so much, but we'll look at it when it's present. And then psychiatry still says, well, you're not a medicine, you're not a doctor. Not that they are either, but anyway. Here we go. This psychology idea that ties everything together is the same in the parasite, and it's the same in the addictive drug, which functions like a parasite, and it creates humans which act like parasites. So it is like the wasp and the fig, you get me? You got the heroin dealer, and he's inside of this system, and the system is his dealing network. That's like the fig tree, and his job is to move around the heroin. He's like the female fig who goes from one tree to another tree and makes sure the whole thing stays in balance. So this balance thing is really important to get inside of, and think about how when you have an ability to look at yourself as somebody who is an addict and they're chasing a positive state, and you say, the goal for me is to be in an enjoyable state of being. Well, that's an internalization process that's avoiding the fact that it's plain as day to everybody else who's looking at you externally, that you're not really doing that, you're fleeing from a negative state, which is called, the withdrawal state. And I mean, if that wasn't true, then no one would be an addict, yeah? So the problem is that people get to a point where they've already been, I'd say, parasitoided, if that's a word, parasited by something in life, something psychological, something emotional. And it could be connected to actual parasites that are going in and recoding the body. It could be connected to more benign drugs like caffeine and nicotine. But eventually, you've recoded your body in accordance with the parasitism laws. And it's really dangerous because then you get stuck. Sorry, that's probably a loud mower that you can hear. Then you get stuck in this cycle of saying that, well, I'm chasing a good experience, not running from a bad experience. But you see, the bad experience didn't exist before you were telling yourself that you were chasing the good experience. And this is how the parasite works. See, that's what the recoding of the brain is. It's another example is in the one that comes out of cats. That's crypto. No, I can never remember that one when it's like it's like it's in my brain, telling me to forget its name so it gets to hide more. But I think you know the one that I mean. It's the one that switches off the fear impulse in small mammals, and there's a lot of evidence that it does humans as well, because they did studies and showed a much higher incidence of car crashes in highly avoidable situations, and there was a large volume of cat ownership and the presence of this Toxoplasma gondii. I'm pretty sure it's, toxoplasmosis. Yeah. And that's where you can see that you'll start taking actions without being aware of why you're taking the actions. And it'll constantly be reinforcing itself to you. That's the crazy thing. That's how the parasite system works. You have to put in the effort, and it is like wrapping yourself up in bonds, and you're making yourself into a gift for the parasite the parasite doesn't have to do anything but sit there and feed. And believe it or not, this is why the plants benefit from having human addicts, Because the more human addicts there are, the more plants are going in the ground, you see? Simple supply and demand. We think that we created economy. Well, no, nature created economy. Nature created supply and demand, and the kings of supply and demand are the parasites. But we don't go far enough with what parasitic nature is, because I could start going into the nature of evil now, and I consider nearly all parasites to be a expression of evil, you know, a physical expression of evil, but it's something that rests on the borderline for what the human motive actually is, you know? And it's like what I said at the start. You have leeches, which can be beneficial, and you have benign drugs and medicines. So they're not all acting directly like parasites, and some of them are, but they're doing it beneficially. So it's important to see that evil is like a perniciousness, you know? It's something that will tell you that you're doing things for the good reason, but you're actually doing it out of the most horrible reason imaginable, which is that if I don't keep doing this, I'll keep experiencing that. That wasn't something you had to deal with before. You know, and this cooks everybody who gets in too deep without realizing that who they are at the start is not who they are in the middle, and it's not going to be who they are when they come out the other end, because their brains have been recoded and their body has been recoded. All of their hormone releases, all of that, it's all been shifted around to benefit something that acts like a parasite. So it's clear and obvious to me that all the drugs that are out there are connected to something that's spiritually parasitoid, yeah? And if you go too far with it, it becomes actually parasitic. So it no longer just needs part of your life, it needs all of your life, and it will slowly consume your life until you die. And there's lots of parasites that do that, like the cordyceps, for example. And then after you're dead, it'll probably just continue to eat through your flesh until your bones. It might go and reside in your bones and wait for a dog to come and gnaw on you, and then it's living in the dog. You know, so this is a really comprehensive way to look at reality, that there's mutual benefit, like mutualism, yeah? That's the term that sits there with parasitoidism and parasitism, and mutualism is where both parties benefit. But we don't have to, I guess, go into that chemically, because it's such like a kind of a simple notion about what human culture is supposed to be about. We help each other, we go along, and we get along. You know, so it's not that you shouldn't base your life on mutualism and sort of seek out where mutualism exists. And you can see in marijuana, right? You can see mutualism there. It's not so much parasitoid, although people will fall into a psychological pattern, which I don't think is really coming from the drug. It's like the energy is there from something else that's put its parasitic nature inside of your reality. So you're running from the withdrawal of not being able to use something like marijuana to flush your system out, flush your brain out. Like, I need it to sleep, I need it to regulate everything. And I know that's as much a symptom of being on it for more than half my life as it is a symptom of me needing to be on it because I was poisoned by the mental health system. You know, that damage is never going to go away. And look, this is a huge thing about parasitic nature. It's in the mental health system. All those people, you're all probably aware of the concept of psychic parasites or energetic parasites, or even if you like physical parasites that live inside your brain that have a lower form of consciousness. So they're able to sort of mold to your mental patterns as they image themselves. But that'll get a little bit too obtuse unless you go and look up a channel called Endure Until End. And yeah, that'll give you a rundown on what those things actually look like when you study them under a rifoscope. But yeah, this idea of parasitic spiritual energies, this is where we see the parasitic nature of evil most strongly in the world. And I say most strongly in the world because they're in everybody. Everybody has unbidden thoughts. It's just the more potential that you have, the parasites see that like a giant like orchard for fruit flies. You know, like they're not going to go and hang out at this guy who's symbolized by a field, and there's one orange tree in the middle. And you got this big herd of, big swarm of fruit flies. Like, well, we can't all share that one little tree. Let's go over there to that orchard. And over there's this guy who's like running a business, got a family. You know, he's loving his life, but suddenly he just becomes schizophrenic and he doesn't know why. And it's because he's never thought deeply enough about the spiritual nature that he doesn't know how to fight back against what spiritual parasites are and build up in little bits of stress in your life and use those to create repeating patterns and then reinforce those repeating patterns with an enforced threat and an implied threat. And eventually you have somebody who's wired up on aggression and like a weird kind of, what's the word? It's like a form of nervous tension that's not quite like fear, but more like ongoing trepidation. You know, like a low-grade torture is often way worse than any other thing. Like, we know that about Chinese water torture, for example. And like, this has been my experience of dealing with these negative entities, is it's like someone coming and putting their finger in your face. Every couple of seconds, there's nothing you can do. You can slap it away, you can drive your elbow at it, you know, even though it's like not really physically there, but everything has a spiritual resonance. That's why you can fight in dreams and it's real enough. But we don't really understand what the interplay is between curing ourselves of those parasites, because this is where we see the overarching nature of the psychology is actually cosmic. And the positive force in the universe, it needs to think its way through your situation. And there's no way for you not to take part in that, essentially, because you have to learn to recode your body, not back to the state it was before the parasite showed up, because it ate that. Like, it ate all of those chemical chains away and you become somebody new. But you'll come out the other end by recoding yourself again into this person who is, you know, become a lot stronger than these things which brought you down originally. So this is kind of like the battle that we have is like the sea and the shore, you know. There's a lot of salt water in the ocean and a lot of sand on the beach, and, you know, little bits of sand, they get scooped back into the ocean, and bits of water, they run down into the sand, and everything's sort of connected as much as it is completely, you know, distinct. How you doing?
Are you Lewis?
Yeah, what's up?
Oh no, I seen people giving you a hard time and that on Facebook.
Yeah, man.
But man, you just lived down the road from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, dreads, eh? You shaved them off.
Yeah, I hadn't felt my scalp in like 20 years, so.
Fucking looks so good, eh?
Thanks, man.
Fuck yeah, but you're not looking for any work or anything?
I'm definitely looking for work.
Are you?
Like,
Have you got hiking shirt and that?
oh yeah, I got gear, yeah.
Hiking shirt,
Steel caps, yeah, all that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, jump in, I'll give you this time if you want.
All right, let me just turn off my YouTube. I'm doing a live stream. See you guys.